This is by Caitlin Johnstone, wrote, I think, a very good article because it's Super Tuesday now, and so it is general election season for all intents and purposes after tonight. And just as in 2016, there was a lot of arguing about who to vote for, whether to vote at all. Are you going to protest vote? Are you going to, not vote? Are you going to do a write-in? 2020 was the same thing. And obviously, say no to Genocide Joe. No doubt about that. There's no question about that in my mind, that is the right thing to do. But I do think this was a really great little piece that we'll read here. Nobody with real power cares if you refuse to vote for Biden. And this is an important red pill to take in. There's been a lot of talk in pro-Palestine circles about withholding votes for Biden in protest of his genocide in Gaza, which is, of course, fine. But the discourse around doing so often misses an important point. A lot of U.S. voters erroneously think they'd be punishing the Democrats for Gaza by costing them the election, mistakenly assuming Democrats care about winning. They don't. Losing an election costs Democratic Party leaders nothing. All the career politicians and political operatives at the top keep their careers either way. From their point of view, this is just a cushy job with sweet benefits, and they keep those win or lose. And obviously, Biden himself doesn't care. He'll have a comfortable retirement regardless of the outcome in November. And on some level, he's surely aware that it's nuts for a dementia patient to be in the White House anyway. If the Democrats cared about getting your vote, they'd be trying hard to earn it. They're not trying because they don't care. The unelected empire managers who actually run the U.S. power structure also don't care who wins the election. They know they'll still get their murder and militarism and capitalism and imperialism no matter who gets sworn in next year, whether it's Biden or Trump or Harris or someone else. No one with any real power cares about your vote. And that's the real issue. That's the real point that keeps getting missed here. The problem is not that the wrong people keep getting elected. It's that the elections don't matter and voters don't have a say. Yes, it's that humanity is dominated by a murderous globe-spanning power structure loosely centralized around Washington, whose actual movements and behavior have effectively zero responsiveness to the will of the electorate.
Preach.
Yeah, absolutely. You're never going to be able to vote your way out of this mess, and you're never going to be able to not vote your way out of this mess because the power of your vote has been undermined to a value of 0. Very good formulation there. That doesn't mean there's no way out of this mess. It just means there's no way to get out of this mess using the fake plastic diversion toy they handed you to shut you up and trick you into thinking you have a say. There are still plenty of other tools in the toolbox for forcing an evil power structure to stop doing evil things, but they require a whole lot of hands to bring about, and right now we don't have them. Too many people have been successfully propagandized into believing the status quo works and their government is basically good, or successfully manipulated into giving up on politics altogether and throwing their attention into other things. So I love this article, but I do want to plant a little flag at that paragraph because part of why I still think it's important to boycott Joe Biden is exactly for the reasons she's saying there. It's true what she's saying. No one in power cares whether you vote for Joe Biden or don't vote for Joe Biden. But the people who are still asleep might care. The liberals who you need to either snap out of it or get the fuck out of the way, they care very much whether you vote for Joe Biden. And so in boycotting the Joe Biden ticket, you send a clear message to them. You can't have your fake plastic diversion toy called a Democratic White House without us, and we're not giving it to you because what's happening is repugnant and obscene. So that, to me, is the efficacy of withholding your vote for Joe Biden. She's correct about what she says. Yeah, you think Jake Sullivan gives a fuck if he gets a second term or if Trump's guy gets a second term? No, they don't care. But the people who need to be snapped out of their propaganda, they care.
Yeah, when they are out of power, they just go on to corporate boards. They go into consultancies. They get gigs for Amazon. They just go to Silicon Valley. That's it. They're fine either way. They make more money that way. Then
Yes.
you do some resume building. You build up your millions over there. Then you go back into government next time your people are in charge. Yeah, no. And any way the cookie crumbles, their bread is buttered. Schellenberger's article where he showed you had all these intelligence people who thought they were going to go work for Hillary, and when she didn't win, they all wound up forming and working for NGOs that became the censorship regime that, under the
Right.
guise of being independent, are actually working for the government.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So they'll end up somewhere. They'll end up
They'll
somewhere.
end up
They gotta
somewhere.
fall back.
They'll be fine.
They will be fine. We'll read a little bit more of this because it's a short piece, so we'll read the whole thing. Before the people can begin using the power of their numbers to force real change, they're going to have to be awakened to the reality that everything they've been told about their government, their society, and their world is a lie. They've got to come to the understanding that the mainstream news media are nothing but propaganda, and they live under the most murderous and tyrannical regime on this planet. They've got to realize that this power structure does not ultimately serve their interests or the interests of their fellow human beings around the world. Only when enough eyes open to this reality can revolutionary change via direct action become possible. The good news is it's entirely possible to help get those eyes open. Everything you do to help share the truth with your fellow citizens and spread awareness of what's really going on pushes this possibility towards reality. The more people open their eyes, the more people there are to help open others. So this could snowball from impossible to probable to inevitable quite quickly. An entire globe spanning empire rests on a closed pair of eyelids. Once they snap open, the whole thing will crumble, and from there we can begin building a healthy world together. Well said by the perennially brilliant Caitlin Johnstone. But that second part there reinforces what I said. Part of how you snap those eyeballs open is by freaking them the fuck out this year and saying, we are not voting for Joe Biden this year. That's it. We are not doing it. He has crossed our red line. Fuck you. You don't have to argue about it. Don't argue about it too much. Don't get mired in these debates. We've all seen the Twitter threads that go on for miles and miles, and Facebook conversations and Reddit, this, that, the other. Just no, absolutely not. It's very simple. Why not? 30,000 people are dead, over 20,000 of whom are women and children. And so that's it. That's done. That ship has sailed. We're not doing it. You cannot cross that red line and ask for our vote. Period. That's it. Let them fret as much as they want and hope that that distress you put them under opens their eyes and ushers in the kind of momentum that she says is very much needed, because it is.
Just on Caitlin Johnstone, I would say with some confidence, as far as opinion writers on the left go, she's the best we have.
Yeah, and the volume of work is just incredible. Like, she writes almost every day.
And she consistently knocks it out of the park.
Yeah.
Like, it's amazing she can be that good and that prolific at the same time. Like, there's never really a Caitlin Johnstone article that doesn't flow well. Right? She never really the only time I ever disagreed with something that she wrote, her heart was in the right place. I think if you remember, there was one of those little mini internet meme flare-ups because they took the picture of the students at the museum on their cell phones. And, everyone talked about how horrible it was that they're sitting in front of these great works of art and they're just sitting there on their cell phones. So she wrote a very fanciful article where, somebody confronts one of these students and they confidently tell them, no, actually, I'm looking up the entire history of art. And no, they're not. And I actually responded to it. I said, I would love to believe that, but come on, really? That's not true. That's not what's happening in that picture. Other than that, literally, I've never disagreed with anything she ever wrote. So this is typical, and that's part of what makes her stand out. She's so insightful, getting right to the heart of the matter with this. Nobody else has framed it quite this way, and she's absolutely right. They don't care, but I also think that you're right. The libs do. Like, in the end, is that accelerationist? I guess.
Well, it's
It's
not. I mean, not exactly. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but not exactly. Because it's not a matter of like crashing things into the ground. It's just a matter of opening eyeballs, right? And if the only way to open eyeballs is to abandon the Democratic Party, then you have to do that. I don't consider Trump a downgrade. Like, I don't
You
consider
got
an
a point.
accelerationist for that
Yes,
reason.
that's
Like, it's
true.
not a
That's
downgrade.
true.
Like,
That's true.
it's actually materially,
It
probably
right.
ever so slightly by accident better. I mean, Donald Trump gave a horrific quote to Fox News. I don't know if it was today or yesterday, but they said, like a lot of these people who are voting uncommitted, they're not going to vote for you because you're a stronger ally of Israel than Joe Biden's. Like, what do you think about what Israel's doing in Gaza? And he says, well, they have to finish the problem. Just a completely
Right.
heartless piece of shit. Like
Well, that's why I
he's a
always
monster on that front. So like, I'm not telling you it's going to be better under Trump because he's a
right.
better guy. I'm saying with
Right.
Trump there is the randomness factor. There's a chance he'll have a falling out with Netanyahu over some bullshit thing and cut off funding if another one of these things flares up. Like, it's not a great chance. I'm not saying it's because of any conviction of his. With him, there's a randomness factor. With Biden, there's no randomness factor. We know where Jake Sullivan is taking the world.
Well,
He's made it very clear.
Putin said. He prefers Biden because he's more predictable.
He's more predictable. Exactly.
Now, is he playing head games? Maybe. But is the fact that Biden is a more reliably predictable person to have to face off against than Trump? Of course it is.
Right.
Of course it is. I mean, Trump, yes, you're right. You never know. Trump could turn around on a dime and say, we're I don't understand why we're paying for everything in Israel.
Right.
Yeah, why don't they pay for it? Why don't other countries? Yeah, sure, that could definitely happen. And yes, you're right. It's not accelerationist in the sense that I think Trump's going to do a worse job. I mean, how much worse a job could you really
fucking do?
How much worse could you do?
Yeah.
So I do agree with that, but you are talking about being a political actor who's trying to kind of force people to wake up to the fact that the system doesn't work. So in some sense, you are trying to crash the system, but you're trying to crash it so that something better can take its place.
Sure thing.
So in some sense, that's an accelerationist.
But the act of boycotting Biden is in this case to just scare the libs, just scare them straight. Just saying, no, you've reached the end of the line here. You've reached the end of the line, and we're not turning back no matter what.